based on your previous comment about these rankings coming up, you're not uptight about it, nor do you think Michigan fans should be uptight in any such way. You think, okay, Georgia can lose. I agree. Everybody else that's in contention, they win out, they're in.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we've got. I mean, I would venture out. I think Texas A&M is like is number 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm talking about, yeah.
But yeah, as far, I mean, our top
one loss teams,
really 8, top 8 teams. I think from Oklahoma on up, all those teams win. The teams that do win out, I think they'll be in. I think Cincinnati is in there as well, just due to, the Michigan State, Ohio State kind of clump, if you will, that's all kind of lumped together. Now, of course, there's going to be differences. Like, for instance, if Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State, if all of those teams win out, then obviously that would mean like Michigan State don't. But if those teams win out, then I think, our Cincinnati's probably going to be left out. But then too, if Oklahoma wins out, that's going to be a decision that's got to be made as well too. Like what's going to happen there. So it'll be interesting, but I ultimately think that things are going to work themselves out. Because, like I said, you got Ohio State, Michigan, you got Michigan State and Ohio State that have to play. So I think I just overall think things are going to work themselves out. And even as an Alabama fan, I'm pretty concerned with playing Georgia in Atlanta. Full transparency. I think if JT Daniels is not the starter, I feel a lot better about that game. But if he is, I mean, he's shown the ability to put up 400 yards and passing, and that along with that run game will be pretty tough to deal with, along with that defense. But yeah, so to get back to your original point, yeah, I really don't think Michigan fans should be, too up in arms about it. Take care of Penn State this week. You've got Maryland the week after that, and then you got Ohio State. So you take care of business, you're going to be exactly where you want to be.
So Des, I rarely disagree with you, but I am in the camp that things rarely work out. that is, you just made the statement, and I called out one of our Ohio State guys on our Ohio State show today. I said the same thing to Steve Hellwagon. I said, Steve, you just said the phrase that drives me nuts around this time of year, that everything's going to work itself out.
Well,
I said it's kind of like, I liken it to, let's say I got $50,000 of credit card debt, and I've got a stack of bills from the credit card companies, and I don't have the money to pay them. It's going to work itself out. Something's going to happen. Sure. They're going to, haul me off to jail. Did that work itself out? So there's going to be a conclusion. I agree with that. There will be a conclusion. The 13 people in that committee will have to make a decision the day after. Does that mean it worked? I only think that there's one year that it worked itself out. 2019, that was the Ohio State, Clemson, LSU were all undefeated.
Yep.
Oklahoma had one loss as a conference champ, and nobody else really had a legit claim.
Correct.
Even though you should like me for this, Des, I truly believe Alabama was one of the 4 best teams in the country, but they didn't earn it. So Oklahoma won a conference championship. They only had one loss. They were the team to select. Yep. That's the only year that I don't think that there were teams outside the top 4 that had a claim to say, hey, we've got just as good a resume as one of the teams that was selected.
Yeah. What do you think? Now, granted that, not a normal year by any stretch. What do you think about last year? Because we had undefeated Bama was 1. They played Notre Dame, who was 4, and then Ohio State, Clemson was 2-3.
So Texas A&M, same record as Notre Dame, didn't win a conference. Notre Dame didn't win a conference. Why does Notre Dame get to go and Texas A&M does not?
That's true, because Clemson won. That's right. I guess you're right.
And we can continue. Cincinnati was undefeated. Why didn't Cincinnati go?
And I think the toughest part for me is when I think about, and it's funny that we're talking about this, because I was just looking at on YouTube Joel Klatt and Colin Cowherd, and they were talking about kind of the expansion and so on and so forth, and on some point I do get the expansion, but the thing that I think about the most with the current scenario that we have now in the 4 teams is, that 1-4 matchup is rarely a good football game. Like, so in my whole premise is I'm not even sure that there's truly 4 that are good enough. Like, usually it's a big 3, and then it's kind of everyone else kind of in that 4 to 8 range of like kind of, jockeying for that last spot. But
True.
most times it's that number 1 team. I mean, they may end up losing in, the championship. Like, I think we've had the first year Ohio State beat Alabama as the, 4-1 matchup. Alabama's done it. They won the 4-1 matchup, but I think that year they lost to Clemson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But those are the only ones I can remember off the top of my, top of the head. But of what, 6 years that we've had it, we've had 2 times that a 4-1 matchup has gone to the underdog. So I guess my thing is just I'm not quite sure that we have even 4 that essentially would be worthy. That's good, like just good enough,
Mhm.
essentially, that where that number 4 can play with the other 3.
I understand that that viewpoint, and history has shown us just exactly what you stated there. Yeah, 2014, that was a different year. That was the first year, and obviously we had the 4 could certainly play with the other 3. The 4 seed, maybe the 2 or the 3 couldn't, but yeah, other than that, obviously there's been a Michigan State or a Washington or an Oklahoma that couldn't hang with the 1 seed, a Notre Dame last year. But see, that's really not my concern. Like, I don't care how many teams can play that well. And I get that for the sake of viewing competitive football games.
Mm-hmm.
I want it. My aim is more to be fair and to provide opportunity for teams that earn it.
I with that premise, I do understand it. I do get it. The tough part for me is the years that we get a 4-loss Pac-12 team of guaranteeing them that person a spot, or even a 3-loss Pac-12 team, because maybe that was a bit unfair. But when it to me, it's clear, like, you've lost to 3 other football teams. Like, I think it's clear you're not one of the best teams to win it. But it also too, I mean, I do understand it. It's expansion's coming no matter what I say, or what we say. It's coming. There's just too much money involved in it, and as much as I don't want it to expand, I do think it is going to have some pretty cool football games that we're going to be able to see after conference championship. So I'm against it, but I'm also for it, because I'm like, because there's nothing I love more than watching some of those pretty, big matchups. Like, I had saw like the top 8 teams, like where they stand now, like what those matchups would look like. And it was like, Oklahoma, Georgia, I think it was Ohio State, Cincinnati, like just those matchups would be pretty cool to see. So I'm like, I think part of me is just kind of like old school, getting, I'm 35 now and obviously getting older, but it's another part of me is just like, we're going to see some pretty awesome games around, Christmas time and what what I used to consider bowl season. So I'm not going to be too upset if we expand and get some better football games.
Yeah, I think had we had an expanded playoff during this playoff era, we probably would have landed in the same spot with the same teams at the end. Mm-hmm. We just would have been gifted with a little more good football and some bad football, a couple blowouts. Sure, there'd be some blowouts. No doubt about that.
True. Yeah.
I'm actually, and I don't want to take this too far off the rails if people want to talk Michigan and hear us talk Michigan Penn State, but I have all sorts of concoction of 16-team playoffs, and there's a couple different ways to do that, but you can get the group of 5 involved in that, I think, and you can include all 10 conference champions.
That would be that would be I would like that. And of course, people I'm sure are going to be like, wait, you just said you don't want it to expand, but would like that. But I'm like, look, if you're going to expand it, like, all right, like, and bring them on, include them. The only thing I would want to see is home games, on the actual like campuses. One of the last things that I read was their potential, whoever the committee is talking about the expansion is talking about having the first round games at like bowl locations, which I think is ridiculous.
Yes.
I'm not with
It
that
is
at all.
ridiculous.
I'm not with that at all. I'm like, wait, no. I'm like,
For a few different reasons.
Say it again.
I'm sorry, Des. Keep going.
Yeah. So they talked about. Sorry, we got logged out of the laptop in my daughter's Zoom dance class, so I'm gonna be multitasking. But I've seen some things that the committee is talking about expanding, but also like for instance, the first round games wouldn't be on, like, for instance, if Ohio State is the 3 seed, like the first round of the playoff wouldn't be at Ohio State in Columbus. It would be in like Santa Clara, like,
Yeah.
Which I think that's like, I'm like, to me, the whole point of expansion is to better the college football experience, mainly for the fans. I mean, I'm sure the players are fine with, not playing more football games, but I'm like, that would be for the fans. Like, how incredible would that be for an Ohio State or a Michigan fan to be able to drive to, Ann Arbor or Columbus, and maybe you don't get tickets to the game, because I can only imagine the ticket prices for that. So, as just a normal guy, I'm probably not going to be able to, to pay for that. But nonetheless, like that to me, that's just that would be just such a cool experience. And those higher seeds, those teams that, I won my conference. Like I went through the gauntlet. Like I deserve to have that.
Yep.
That home field advantage. Like that's going to be big. Like to make it, Michigan fans to have to fly to California to play a game in Santa Clara, and then the next week they have to go to, who knows where. Like, I just think they would be missing an opportunity there. But also, to be quite frank, like, I don't think that they're really concerned with, the fan side of it. I think they're, concerned on kind of the dollar side, which is a little unfortunate, but we'll see what happens.
And I think you make a good point, and kind of a different angle on that same point is, if you're a Michigan fan, your team makes the playoff, and you're looking at hopefully making a run to the national championship, and there are 3 games to be played, let's say, and there are no campus games. So the first one's in Arizona, at, Tempe, Arizona, or wherever, the Glendale, Arizona. So you're faced with the thought that, let's say I can only make one trip, and do I want to go to the first round game? Or do I want to hope that because basically you're in a no-win situation if you go to the first round game, because either they win and you've played your hand.
You played your hand. Yep.
and you instead of going to the second round game. But if they go and that's the only game, well, they lost, and you went to go see them lose, or you go to see them win, and instead of opting to go to the second round game somewhere. And also, I think that, so how many groups of fans are going to be traveling multiple weeks to these games? It's just the resources involved are just way above most people. And then on top of that, most people that criticize and have an argument against expansion say, well, you're going to water down the season, and there's going to be all these games that don't matter because the team's going to have an automatic, or they're going to be in a great position to make the playoffs, so they can lose a game late in the season. Let's say Alabama's playing Auburn. Alabama's undefeated. They've locked up the West. They're going to the SEC championship game. The traditionalists could not imagine that Alabama would not put everything on the line to beat Auburn. It's the Iron Bowl. But realistically, how motivated would the players be if they're number 1 in the country and they know they're going to make the playoffs? So I get that argument. But if you put these games on campus, and award conference champions and the highest seeds, well, suddenly, Alabama, do you want to throw this game away? Do you want to travel to Madison, Wisconsin, the first round of the playoffs, or Seattle, Washington, or wherever, and play a first round playoff game? Okay, then
that changes a lot. It changes, it changes everything, but I think it also, in an odd way, keeps it the same, to where the way things are today, like that, Alabama would never rest starters against, at the Iron Bowl, and as they shouldn't. So it just will be interesting on how exactly they format it, because I thought the vote was either a yes or no on a 12-team playoff. Which in that, and maybe I'm not looking at the correct formulation of what it looks like, but what I saw was the top either 2 or 4 seeds would get a bye. So seeds 5, 6, 7 would have home games. But then the next round, for instance, let's say, Georgia's number 1, they would get a bye week first, the first round, and then the number 5 team would host a game. So with number 5 hosting a game, and say they win, the next round, which would be 5 versus 1, they would actually play at a neutral site. So it would be like I thought that part was kind of interesting, because of course the number 1 seed's gonna want to bye, but you also probably want to have a home game as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect route to it, but for me, I would love to have, the 1 through 4 be able to host a home game, and maybe if you're maybe the top seeds maybe get a bye and they host a game. Maybe I think that would probably be the ideal route, because then you're rewarding them, but then also almost a double reward.